I don't think there was a real evolution of the prevalence. What has completely changed is the way we look at it and the diagnostic. In fact, we started from a very poor serology with very low results, and then to a much more sensitive serology, and then there was a big change with the arrival of PCR. And then we just realized that in fact qfever is all over the place in Europe. In one cattle farm out of 2, there is qfever if you look for it. Of course, you only find what you look for. There's this, for example, an interesting study which shows that in France, the human cases of qfever are located in close to Marseille. Why close to Marseille? This is not where you find the ruminants. Just because the physicians are trained by professors who are keen on this disease, because there's a reference center of qfever there, and that's why they look for the disease. So you only find what you look for. And in fact, I don't think there was a huge evolution of the prevalence of qfever in Europe, but there was a huge evolution of the diagnostic of qfever in Europe. The positive thing I see is that they are much more aware today than they were yesterday. That's the important point. But still, there is lots of work to do, because we did a study where we showed that only one farmer out of 10 thinks that qfever might be an issue in his farm, when you know that one farm out of 2 has Coxiella circulating in the farm. The knowledge is also very different from one country to the other. I think there are countries who started to work quite a while ago on qfever, and they are much more aware, I would say, than others. For example, I would say the 2 extremes are probably France, where they started more than 20 years ago to work a lot on qfever. On the other side, you've got UK. UK, when you talk to a vet about qfever, the first time they looked at you, but this disease does not exist in UK, or I never heard of it. And what is interesting is that that was exactly the same reaction of the vets in the Netherlands. Just before they had this big outbreak with 4,000 human cases, they were saying, oh no, but qfever is not an issue in our country. And then they had these massive outbreaks. So I think it's really a question of knowledge and a question of making people aware of the disease. There must be an exchange between the different stakeholders, including also the state, as it is a zoonosis. You know, they are important in the way they change or they organize the law. Because, for example, there are countries where farmers are really reluctant to look for qfever, because they know that if they look for qfever, if it's positive, then they might have issues because the state will ask them some measures of confinement or some measures about the way they can sell their milk. So I really think that we need all those people to work together so that the law does not push the farmer not to declare that they have Coxiella, because it's even worse. If they don't look for it, of course they don't find it. Ceva must go on training the vet. As we said before, the knowledge can improve a lot, and that's why we are going on making some roadshow, also taking some key opinion leaders with us to teach maybe pollination between countries. As I told you before, there are countries where they are much more aware of the disease and who can give much more information to other countries. And that's also what we are trying to do, also to put people in relation so that they can discuss. For example, the British vet can discuss with the vets from the Netherlands or from France or from Spain and exchange about that. Because, for example, there are lots of people who think that qfever has no impact in their farm. But there was a study made in Spain where we show that we can reduce, by vaccinating, we can reduce the number of open days of 14 days. So that's a lot of money for the farmers. That's around 70 euro per cow per farm. And of course, it's different when there's an abortion, because when there's an abortion, of course, the farmer sees it and understands that it's a big issue. But when it's reduction of fertility, then it's harder to see. And I think we need also to go on showing the economical impact of the disease in the farms. Lots of vaccines have been tested experimentally, but not in infected condition, which is completely different with the qfever vaccine, because the qfever vaccine has been tested in contaminated farms. And there are really not many vaccines that I know that have been tested that way. And what we show is that even in farms that are contaminated, we really improve the situation of the farm thanks to vaccination. What is interesting is that when the outbreak started in the Netherlands, we were called by the state at Ceva to help them to better understand the disease. So I tell you, there's a real need for exchange between many stakeholders, the vaccine producers, the vets, the farmers, the state, also the diagnostic lab, because I told you the improvement of diagnostic is key in this disease.